The Dallas Cowboys finally get their number 2 receiver. What does that mean for George Pickens' dynasty value? We'll get to that next.
You are Locked On Dynasty Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Here are your hosts, Marcus Mosher and Kate Madjuk.
Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Kate is out today. She'll be back tomorrow. But we've got Matt Williamson here. Follow him on Twitter at Williamson NFL. And Matt, I got to say, this is like the perfect episode for you.
It's unbelievable.
My Cowboys and your Steelers, they completed a trade for the first time since, I think, 1993. It's been a while.
Oh, really? I didn't even think of that. Okay.
It's been a while since they've done a deal together. So the Cowboys send a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick to Pittsburgh for George Pickens and a 6th-round choice in the following draft. Let's talk about this for Pickens and his dynasty value. He was already being drafted around wide receiver 30. Does this hurt or help him?
I'm going to say help. I think more stable quarterback situation. He wasn't the clear one in Pittsburgh. I would have to think, well, drafting Booker in the 1st round might imply differently, but I would think that there's more pass attempts to go around in Dallas than there is in Pittsburgh with Arthur Smith. I'm assuming Aaron Rodgers is everything I talk about today. I'm going to assume Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Steeler, but until I'm told otherwise, I'm operating under that assumption. I don't think it's a huge jump, but I think it's a nice little boost. And frankly, it's something we don't talk about enough for these players. I think there's value going somewhere where you're wanted. You know, like they might extend them. The Steelers weren't, and now you don't know. I mean, there's a little more certainty. I mean, the Dallas has some plan for them. Do you think, which is more in your wheelhouse? I'd like to hear your Cowboy thoughts in particular, you know?
So a couple of people have told me this morning that the plan right now is not to sign him to an extension. And actually, George Pickens feels the same way. He would rather gamble on himself for a year and see what the free agent market looks like in 2026. And honestly, Matt, you look at the receivers that are expected to be available, even if Pickens only has an average year, in theory, he could get a lot of money because it's a pretty weak wide receiver class.
Oh, yeah.
However, from his dynasty value, like you're right. I think the fact that he's going to a more established quarterback, he doesn't have to be the number 1 receiver, I think is good for the stability for George Pickens. But now he's not going to get number 1 target volume, and you're on your 2nd team. The Cowboys aren't committing money to you long term. We've seen this happen kind of time in and time out. These guys that get traded in year 4, year 5 of their career, they really never get to that ceiling that they were previously. I think wide receiver 35 is about right.
I mean, if you own him, I would throw his name on the trade block and just see if somebody's like, wow, now's the time to pounce, because I don't think it drastically went up. I think that's a great point that you made, that already changing teams at his age, and we know there is volatility involved. I'll just kind of leave it at that isn't a ringing endorsement that he's going to spend the next 8 years in Dallas. And
no,
look
at the
other retired,
Look at the other receivers that Pittsburgh has moved on from. Like Juju Smith-Schuster was a free agent. He's never recaptured that value that he had when he was in Pittsburgh. Same for Deontay Johnson or Claypool. I mean, the list goes on, and it's not just for
even Antonio Brown was not the same. I mean, it's every one of them.
Generally, these receivers have a hard time becoming more valuable when they go somewhere else, unless they're being traded for like a 1st-round pick, and a team has a serious, commitment to them. Like I look at what the Eagles did for AJ Brown. Like when you trade a 1st-round pick for AJ Brown, that is a commitment. A 3rd-round pick, which the Cowboys are hoping it's more like pick 85 or 90, that's not a long-term commitment at all. That's more of a 1-year rental.
100%. And we know Dallas's recent history in the free agent market, which isn't very robust to say the least. if that's going to continue and you rent him for a year and he leaves, he might yield you a 3rd-round pick a year from now too, and you get a year of service out of him. Who knows?
And I think that's the way the Cowboys are looking at it. Like, hey,
yeah,
let's have him here. We're hoping that he's on his best behavior for 1 year in a contract year. And if it goes great, maybe we'll sign him. If not, maybe we get a 4th-round comp pick back, and it ends up being more of a pick swap than anything else. But for for Pickens's value, again, I think it's good for 1 year, but I'm not moving him up. Like, I just think the ceiling is still going to be capped because CeeDee Lamb is going to garner 175, 180 targets.
So I was thinking about this yesterday. I was just listening to just starting to dig into redraft stuff. It's that season, and I was listening to a wide receiver redraft podcast. And as they were talking through their wide out rankings, I thought CeeDee Lamb might lead the league in targets. I mean, maybe that. Do you think he gets a slight nudge the opposite direction? Instead of 13 targets a game, he gets 11,
Well, maybe. But I actually think this helps CeeDee Lamb because you knew the Cowboys were going to go out there and get somebody else. You look at the top receivers in our dynasty rankings right now, like Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase, they're sharing targets with T. Higgins and Jordan Addison. So it's not like they're the only guys in their offense. But I was concerned that teams were just going to double CeeDee Lamb and then dare the Cowboys to throw the ball to Jonathan Mingo and Jalen Tolbert. And now with George Pickens, even despite all the headaches, which we don't have to get into, Matt, but now you have
you can't leave him alone. I'm telling you that. If you leave a wide receiver, if you leave a corner on him alone all day long, it's going to be a long afternoon for the defense.
And I think that's what Dallas wanted, is an receiver that can play on the outside, where now you have to play maybe some more cover 2. And that's just going to open up things for CeeDee Lamb underneath. So honestly, I think the biggest winner of this trade is probably Dak Prescott. He just gets another viable option. And then CeeDee Lamb, I just think he's one of the most stable and reliable receivers we have in fantasy right now.
Yeah, I guess I kind of phrased that wrong about him taking a step back, because maybe he loses 20 targets over the course of a 17-game season, but he also loses a lot of double coverage, and it's a lot more quality. I mean,
I think
they'll move him around, and
yep.
Pickens is scary, man. I mean,
you know this better than anybody else.
I'm telling you,
all those practices out of the Latrobe. I mean, he is a freak athlete.
And to be honest, just to kind of give a thumbnail, I mean, his rookie year, Matt Canada, he barely played his last year at Georgia. He basically ran like 2 routes. I mean, he led the league in go routes, a couple outs, a couple comebacks, but had no route tree, nothing in breaking. And every year he's gotten better and better. Now there's issues. So he goes over the middle very gingerly. Some of his blocking stuff is on backside runs where no one's paying attention and you don't need him to block, things like that. And I'll tell you, he's not a popular dude in the locker room, but he does remarkable things and he has a lot to play for right now.
Last thing before we move on, we go to the Steelers side of this. Do you anticipate Pickens having a career year because of its contract year? This happens all the time where these guys will be on their best behavior, whether it's for a new team for 1 year or because they're in a contract year. Like, should we expect 2025 to be the best version of Pickens we've seen?
I would think. I would think so. I mean, it's a pretty good environment, a team that wants him. He's got a ton to play for. The ability's there, but he's really volatile. I mean, he's volatile on game day, and he says and does dumb things on game day because, frankly, he's very competitive. He wants to win. He was a 5-star recruit that I think he's always been used to being the best player on the field, goes to Georgia, wins a national title. Like, it was kind of easy for him. And there's some stuff on the sidelines, and, I know the Steelers organization well. I know the people on the sidelines. I know the guys filming the team, and they'll be like, he does crazy crap on the sidelines. I mean, he's a lunatic and hard to be around sometimes. But best behavior is sort of a relative term, I guess, with him. But I would think if it isn't, that's the biggest red flag ever. You know what I mean? Like, if you're sabotaging yourself even more or not running your routes to the fullest, I mean, at least give me 1,000% effort when you're on the field.
Yeah. And that's why I think both parties here would be wise to not do a long-term deal. I just think it makes sense for them to let's see how it goes for a year before we commit any big time money to this player, but we'll see. It's a very interesting trade for Dallas. I actually think it's maybe more interesting for the Steelers, who traded away a second round pick to get DK Metcalf to have one of the better wide receiver duos in the league, to only trade away George Pickens. Let's dive into
one last thing on Dallas, though,
is
I think it would have been explosive and volatile here, but maybe Dallas could get away with franchising him and extending him, and if he has a really good year, 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, yeah, a franchise tag's not a bad gig either,
Just not betting on that happening.
I don't think the Steelers are willing to do it because they don't want the backlash, right?
No. Let's talk about the Steelers side of things next. This episode is brought to you by Skylight Calendar. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, and reminders all in one easy-to-see place. Listen, my daughter's in T-ball now. She's also in dance. We've got meetings that we're going to, it seems like every single night. My life is busy, but with Skylight Calendar, it's helped our lives become way more organized. We can see clearly what's on the agenda for today. And right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcal.com/NFL. Go to skylightcal.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That is skylightcal.com/NFL. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Matt, let's talk about the Steelers now, because right now we've got Mason Rudolph and Will Howard and Skylar Thompson under center.
Yeah.
We think that's going to change here soon. But I want to ask you about DK Metcalf, wide receiver 28 in our latest batch of ADP from Dynasty League Football. I would have to assume this trade bumps him up at least a little bit.
I think so. I think they're in love with him. They gave up a lot. They gave no hesitation to give him money. Pickens getting out of the way certainly opens up more opportunity. Now, I'm sure your next question is there another shoe to drop? I think there is. I think there's two shoes to drop. I think Aaron Rodgers will sign in the next week or so before OTAs. A little birdie told me Rodgers really didn't want to work with Pickens, but that could be neither here nor there. But yeah, and I did find it odd that like a month ago, Rodgers and Metcalf went to UCLA and threw together, but George wasn't invited. Whatever. Who knows? I mean, craziness.
Surprised.
Yeah, more drama. So yes, I definitely think there will be another receiver addition, and Steeler fans hate this a lot. They're just like, Steelers are so dumb. This feels like last season when all we heard about is, are they getting Ayuk? Are they getting Kirk? Then they'll never get another guy. They don't know what they're doing. We'll see. I have a list of like 10 names I think are potential guys you could call and make a deal for. And to your first question, though, yes, Metcalf gets a boost. If you're a Metcalf Dynasty owner, this is a Dynasty podcast, you're happy about it. Side note, I made a Superflex trade today. Before we sign off, I want to run it by you. Hope I got the better end of things, but it's nothing to do with the Steelers or Metcalf. But
let's get to that. We'll get to that in a second. So
yeah.
I don't think you're wrong in that another move is coming for Pittsburgh at receiver. Now, I do wonder, like, if it's of the Allen Lazard, Gabe Davis, Keenan Allen
Gabe
variety.
Davis just got cut, which
right. So
I really hope it's not Lazard.
But think of it if it's one of the Christian Kirk, if it's one of those names, I just don't think that impacts DK Metcalf at all. No, not really. Right. Yeah. Right. If they go out and get a DJ Moore, again, I'm just throwing names out.
That's the first name I threw out. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's one of the names that, that we were talking about over on Locked On Cowboys. Okay. That moves the needle. I think that hurts Metcalf. But any of these other names, that just doesn't concern me at all. In fact, if it's Allen Lazard coming in to be the number 2 receiver, I might even move DK Metcalf even more, because that's just not somebody who's going to be a threat to him at all.
So I do know for a fact they obviously had very in-depth conversations last offseason for Ayuk. And Peacock thinks he still could get moved, but he's injured. The Steelers did have a done deal in place with Christian Kirk, and then he got injured that day, which is weird. And of course, Houston drafted 2, but I still think you could pry Kirk away from them. And I know at one point, and there's probably many names like this, the Steelers did have Tyreek conversations. Now, I don't think that lowers the crazy scale in your building at all.
No, it might raise it, actually.
Right. I also looked at, could you pry away a Packers receiver after they drafted 2? Could
yes. Romeo Doubs seems like the very, very reasonable trade target for.
Yeah.
So
what about Pittman? Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen are still out there.
I mean, Keenan Allen might be as fast as you and I haven't seen us run a 40 in a while. I think the best.
You might be the fastest of the 3. I'm the slowest, and Keenan right between.
Romeo Doubs is probably the name that makes the most sense because him and Aaron Rodgers have a connection together. I think he's 25, so you're not getting an older player. But even then, if it's Romeo Doubs that you trade for, it just doesn't move the needle enough for me to be
Metcalf, right?
No, and I think that's where I keep coming back to. DK Metcalf right now, wide receiver 28. Matt, let me name you some of the names that are being drafted ahead of Metcalf because I love Jordan Addison. I'm taking Metcalf over Jordan Addison. Brandon Ayuk, wide receiver 27. Chris Olave, wide receiver 24. I love
that's another name I threw out. Is he definitely going to be a Saint?
I think if he's not, I'm concerned because the Saints shouldn't be moving on from him. The only reason you're trading him is because of you're terrified of the concussions. Right.
But I mean, their cap is just such a disaster, too. Garrett Wilson? I know that this isn't a Steeler. I don't think that's happening.
No. But I'm naming the guys that are being drafted. Like
I know. I'm
that's fine. You're in Steeler mode.
I'm in Steeler mode, right? No question.
I'm going to give you a guy right now that's being drafted as wide receiver 22 right now. DJ Moore. DJ Moore is a year older than DK Metcalf. They have Roma Dunze. They have Luther Burden. They just drafted Colston Loveland. Why should I want DJ Moore in Dynasty over DK Metcalf?
I don't think you should, and I think there's a potential they're teammates. I mean, that was my first name when I woke up and saw this. I said DJ Moore, ? Retweet. Now I would still rather have Metcalf if they're teammates or not.
I agree.
From what I understand with the Bears, Johnson gets the job, watches DJ Moore's film, and is like, I don't like his effort at all. And then weirdly drafts Luther Burden.
That's because they can mold Luther Burden. I compared Luther Burden to DJ Moore coming out, which is really funny that they're teammates. I do think DJ Moore could be had. I just don't know if Pittsburgh it's pretty clear Pittsburgh is compiling draft capital to go get a quarterback in next year's draft, which just so happens to be in Pittsburgh, that giving up a 2nd or 3rd round pick for DJ Moore and his contract, I don't know if that's something they would want to do right now.
See, I tend to agree, but Cam Hayward, Aaron Rodgers, TJ Watt,
I know,
and the Rooneys and Tomlin are never going to be like 6 and 11 is cool.
That's why this is such a mismatched timeline and so many.
Right.
Okay, we should be doing Locked On Steelers right now. This is a whole different conversation, but
in terms of future capital, as it stands now, they have 3 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s, 2 6s. They can get rid of a 4 for DJ Moore and not miss a beat. That's not going to get land you the next Josh Allen, anyways. No,
absolutely. I wanted to ask you just really quickly on Aaron Rodgers. If again we're assuming that Aaron Rodgers signs with the Steelers, how are you valuing him in your super flex leagues with Metcalf and the rest of the receivers they have on the roster?
Lower now.
Yeah,
I mean, I thought it was a pretty good landing spot, and there would be a lot of big plays between Pickens and Metcalf. And we know Rodgers isn't going to run it all. I think he wants to be get the ball out of your hands guy. Pretty darn low. I mean, in terms of super flex quarterbacks, if you're going to get 1 year out of them, I would bet almost everything I own that the Steelers draft a quarterback high next year.
Yeah, so
probably Rodgers isn't going to be his Sherpa.
So let me real quick before we move on. Geno Smith is being valued at QB 31. Would you rather have Geno or Aaron Rodgers?
Geno.
Okay. Daniel Jones, quarterback 33.
Ooh. Jones, just because if they're both starting in week 10, I'm starting Jones over Rodgers.
Okay. Last one, and this one's hilarious to me. Quarterback 32, on Dynasty League football right now, based on ADP, Will Howard.
That's actually pretty hilarious. I've been calling Will Howard next year's quarterback's caddy. He's gonna be Tiger's caddy next year. You know what I mean? He's perfect for that. But no, Rudolph signed for 2 years. Howard's he's a little trapped.
He's basically Rudolph 2.0 with a little bit better mobility.
So is like Shuck and Shador going ahead of Rodgers?
Yeah. Shuck is QB
Milrow.
29 right now. Shador's QB 30 right now. Milrow QB 31. Just people must be excited about this quarterback class. I don't get it, but whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's talk about some more of the fantasy and dynasty fallout from this big trade on a Wednesday morning. Plus, a recent trade that Matt just made in one of his dynasty
to
leagues.
see a little feedback. Right. That happened this morning.
We'll do that next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. I mean, last night was absolutely phenomenal. These have been a great NBA playoffs, and FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I love FanDuel's race to 10. Which team will score the first 10 points of the game? It's an easy way to enjoy the first 5 or 6 minutes of the game. Go check that out. And if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head over to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. And if it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. And make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Welcome back to the Locked On Dynasty Football Podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves in the news never stops. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, real quick, one last thing on this Pickens trade that I want your thoughts on. Which complementary player gains the most value in this trade? I'm going to give you some options. Is it Jake Ferguson, who is now the third option, but has a lot less attention on him? Is it someone like Jaylen Warren, who just might get 1 million touches this year? Or is it someone like Pat Freiermuth, who now becomes the de facto number 2 receiver in Pittsburgh? Which complementary guy do you think wins the most from this trade?
Two ways of looking at it. I immediately thought it has to be a Steelers pass catcher, not a Cowboys one. So I immediately took Ferguson out of the equation. But all I've been talking about in Pittsburgh since they made the Metcalf trade is who's going to put 8 guys in the box now, with Metcalf and Pickens. So is it the whoever the heck, I assume Javonte Williams? Is it the running back in Dallas? I think that's one way of looking at it. All of a sudden the O-line looks great. If someone can establish, I wish there was a better player there, but if it's
I wouldn't be surprised if the Cowboys are still exploring some running back trades.
Okay. So I'm going to lean towards running back in Dallas. It definitely gets a under the radar boost.
There's a
Freiermuth.
Fryer. I was going to say there's a certain running back that the Cowboys have been eyeing over in New York for a while that they think they might be able to steal for a day 3 pick.
Breece Hall. Really?
I think Breece Hall, again, same thing. I think Dallas is looking at these guys like 1-year rentals, like, hey, play for us for a year, improve your value, and then we'll pick up a comp pick. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Breece Hall or something like that over the next month or so. Okay.
Well, that person would get a boost. I mean, I guess I wouldn't run out and get Javonte Williams, but I'm going to say Dallas running game absolutely got a boost. You're going to get people out of the box with Pickens. Freiermuth, I'm not going to go down the wormhole and be like, Roman Wilson or Robert Woods got a huge boost. I'm like,
no. You're not playing either of those guys in your dynasty leagues.
No but I would not cut Roman Wilson if you drafted him last year.
No. I agree. All right, let's hear your trade that you made.
Okay, so my team's pretty bad. This is a super flex. I earned the 5th pick in the draft, and I was pretty good at quarterback and was shocked that Cam Ward fell to me. I didn't really need him, but I drafted him anyway. So I shopped some quarterbacks. And again, my team's bad. I need all the resources I can get. So I moved Herbert, Justin Herbert, that's the big piece, obviously, to a contending team that's trying to win now. Cortland Sutton, who's past my window.
Yeah.
Same with Njoku. He needed a tight end. And I threw in Jacoby Brissett because he is Kyler Murray and you might as well back him up. You know, I mean, this is a deep league. In return, I got Garrett Wilson. That's a nice piece.
You love?
Oh, I love. Yeah. 3.04 in this draft. We're about halfway through the second round right now. And there'll be somebody there I like. There's already 8 names or so that I'm going to be happy with. Next year's 1, next year's 2.
So it's the most valuable piece in this trade. It's a super flex league, correct?
Yep. It's Herbert.
It's Herbert, right? But I think Herbert and Wilson are close enough that they're basically a wash, right?
Oh, I looked at it. Even I thought I would deal Herbert for Wilson in next year's 2. I would definitely do Herbert for Wilson in next year's 1.
I love Herbert, the NFL quarterback, but I'm starting to sour a little bit on him as the fantasy quarterback.
And you just know he's going to start for 10 years, though. Like, he's never going to get benched.
And that's valuable, right?
Yeah.
But the fact, to me, again, I'm crossing those guys off. They're not quite the same, but close enough. Mm-hmm. So to get a first and second for basically Cortland Sutton is how I would view that trade. And do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. I would not have traded Herbert for Wilson straight up, though.
No, and I don't think you should. But the fact that
I might have for the future second.
Right. The other part of the trade that is so overwhelming that I think it makes sense.
And I looked at his roster. He thinks he's a contender, and he might be, but I don't think he's like the leader in the clubhouse. I'll be shocked if it's 112.
So just to be clear, you got Cam Ward at pick 105 in this draft, right?
Right. So I have Ward and Nix and Carr and some other dudes. You know, like I'm okay at quarterback.
Again, I think Herbert is an awesome player, but I won't be surprised if we get to November and we're seeing Cam Ward just being drafted ahead of Justin Herbert in Superflex leagues because of the rushing upside, right? And that's why I think I would be okay making this move. We already see Nix is ahead of Justin Herbert in dynasty leagues right now. I've got no problem with it at all. I think it's a good trade. I don't think it's an elite trade like you stole Garrett Wilson first, but I think for you who's trying to kind of rebuild, this makes total sense.
Like, I have nothing at running back, but I do have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Malik Neighbors, Garrett Wilson, George Pickens. I just drafted Jaden Higgins in the second round. But that's pretty good core, you know, with two future firsts, 2 future seconds. I won't win anything this year, but I might be a serious contender a year from now.
And that's how you make trades when you're rebuilding. And this is where it's important to have clarity when it comes to your dynasty team. Like, if you know you don't have a championship caliber team, make moves like this so you have the flexibility down the road to kind of construct the team that you want to construct. So kudos to you, Matt. It's like you've been playing dynasty football for a little bit now.
And at 304, I might take Milrow or some, like some dart throw like that. You know,
perfect. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Make sure you check out the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. Check us out on YouTube as well. Follow Matt on Twitter at Williamson NFL. I'm at Marcus _Mosher, and we will see you right back here tomorrow.